Greetings and welcome back. In this episode, we are going to do in Inventor what we did in the last episode in Fusion 360. And that is make a bracket to hold these headphones. They're a gift from my brothers, and I love them and I can't hear anything while they're on, so I'm going to take them off. So let's have a look. We are going to design this cradle here. It's more of an aesthetic design than a practical design, but I think it's pretty. It's going to be 3D printed, and our headphones are going to sit on these little shoulders here. If I turn on this image, we should be able to see, there we go. That's what they'd look like in place. So we're going to have a look at how to model this in Fusion 360. Let's dive right in. We'll begin by clicking File, New, and then we'll find standard millimeter.ipt. If you can't see it, check under metric to the left and click Create. Great. Next, we'll start by creating a 2D sketch on the YZ plane. Yep. And onto this plane, we are going to plonk the image of those headphones. So to do that, we'll come along and we'll click Image. And we'll find the cross-section, the photo of the headphones, and we'll click Open. And we'll place them down here. You might need to reorient it. I think you can be lazy and click and drag the corner. But the scale is going to be something that's unknown. So from an earlier measurement, we know that the distance from this point to this point is 110 millimeters. However, when I measure it here, I can see that it's 605 or 600 millimeters around there. So we're going to use a calculation to calculate the scaling factor. So we'll come along and we'll say calc. And we'll do a calculation, 110 millimeters divided by 600 millimeters. So it's 18.3%. I'm going to copy that value. And next, I'll come and scale this image. So we'll click Scale, select the image, and select the red cursor. So red cursors in Inventor are inviting us to select things. Click the red cursor, and we'll click the lower left-hand corner. And here we'll put in our scaling factor is 0.18333. And click Apply. And we'll just check that it's scaled properly, because if we draw a line from here to here, it should be about 110. Looks good, looks good. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and we are going to, well, we don't really need to get it roughly into position just yet, but we'll go and we'll draw a line, horizontal construction line from here to here, 110. And then an arc that will come along here. There we go. And we'll say the radius there is 107. Sorry, I go too quickly. The way to draw dimensions is to hit the D button, or you can hit this button here. All right. Next, we're going to make this line a construction line by selecting it and clicking Construction here. The alternative is to right-click it and say Construction. Great. Okay, lastly, you don't need to do this, but I find it's going to make everything else a lot easier. We'll go and we're going to constrain, so we'll come to constraints, and we're going to create a coincident constraint between the center point of this line here and the origin there. You'll know that it's fully constrained when it's all turned black. I'm going to click and drag the canvas, the image into position for reference a bit later. Great. Okay. Next, we'll go, well, if you want to hide the image at any point, you can expand out the sketch here, find the image, right-click it, and say Visibility. So by right-clicking it and hitting V, you can toggle the visibility of the sketch image. Great. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. And what we're going to do is draw the cross-section of the arm that we're drawing. So I'm going to draw the cross-section of this arm as it sweeps out. So it's the process that I used to make it was a little bit opaque, but stick with me, trust me. The first thing that we're going to do is make a plane perpendicular to the end of this line here. So to do that, we'll come and click underneath plane. And we'll click normal to curve at a point. Click the line, and then click the end point there. Great. Okay. Next, we'll say Start 2D Sketch and click that plane there. And next, what we're going to do, and this is the weird part, I want to draw a cross-section that looks vaguely like a heart. But there are numerous ways of doing that. I will do it this way. You can do it how you want to, but yeah, have a look. I create an ellipse, and I make the ellipse yay wide and yay tall. And I'm going to give it dimensions. So I'll hit dimension, and I'm going to make it 30 millimeters wide in total, so 15 millimeters wide on the major axis there, and 10 millimeters tall, so 5 millimeters all there at that axis. Next, what I'm going to do is draw some construction lines that'll come in helpful later. So one line here, another here, and a third that goes down there. And I'll make them all construction. If you select from right to left, anything that touches the box will be selected. And you can right click and say construction. Next, we'll come along and we'll say create a coincident constraint between the lower point of the ellipse and the center point here. And of course, didn't bring over, that's no worries. What we're going to do is hit escape and click project geometry and project the point in the middle. So that is to say the end of the line. We'll use a coincident constraint to connect the bottom of the ellipse to that point. And I'm just going to look at the plane again. To do this, you can either right click the plane and say look at, or you can hit it and say page up. Cool. And I'm going to finish off this profile by drawing an arc, and it's going to connect this point here and this point here with a radius of 15 millimeters. And if you can imagine, this profile here is going to be the body of our sweep. So we'll say finish sketch. And now let's go ahead and we will say sweep. And we're going to sweep this profile here. And we're going to, for the path, so select the path here, select this arc here, and click OK. And then we're going to hide the work plane 1. Next, we're going to soften out these edges. So I'm going to use a fillet command. So we'll say fillet. And we'll pick this edge here and this edge here. And we'll give it a magnitude of 2 millimeters. Good stuff. So there's the nice arc that's holding up our headphones. I'm going to expand out sketch 1 and show image 1 so that we can see the arc holding it. Very good. We've got no sense of depth, but I measured it earlier. It's all good. So let's go ahead and hide that. Now, what we want to model next is this portion. So the plate that holds up the arms, that holds up the sweep, that holds up the headphones. It's a rich tapestry. So let's go ahead. We are going to draw the cross section of this plate. So let's go and we'll come back to our parts, and we will say start a 2D sketch. And I'm going to expand out the origin here and mouse over it until I find the plane I'm interested in. So here, by mousing over, I can find that the XY plane is the one that bisects it. Great. Okay. So next, I'm going to draw a rectangle. We'll click rectangle, click it once, and again. Don't worry about the dimensions for the moment. And we're going to add in the dimensions. So hit escape, and then we'll say dimensions. And now for the width of the plate, we'll say that this is 50 millimeters. And for the thickness of the plate, we'll say that that's 8 millimeters. And now we are going to position this plate relative to the origin. So we'll say we'll add in a dimension, and we'll add in a 60 millimeter dimension from the bottom to the origin, which I can't seem to see here. But if you hit F7, you can slice the graphics, and there's the origin. So we'll say dimension from the lower face of the plate there to the origin, and that is 60 millimeters. And then a dimension from the front of the plate to the origin, and that is, from my notes, 22 millimeters. They're good. Okay, so let's click Finish Sketch. And next, we'll go and click Extrude. Now, what I want is for the extrusion to go 120 millimeters, but it wants to be 120 millimeters in total length and in both directions. So we'll say symmetric, and we'll go and add in the dimension 120 millimeters. Great. And we'll just double check that the dimension is correct. There we go. We can see 120 millimeters. Good stuff. Good. Okay. Click OK. And now we've got the plate, which is going to be used to bolt this bracket to the underside of my table. What we're going to do now is we are going to draw the pillars that connect the plate to the arc. So there's a number of ways of doing this. If you want to follow along, we'll start by creating a 2D sketch on the underside of the plate. Cool. And again, there's a million ways of doing this. I like to draw a single line that bisects the plate from the top to the bottom. And then a line that bisects it lengthways, clicking once here, and then in the middle, and then again in the middle, and then to the end there. And for good measure, we'll make that all construction. So select it all, right-click, construction. So why? Because there was a lazy way of positioning the circles that I want to draw here. I wanted a circle that at 1/4 of the way length and 3/4 of the way along. And now we can just draw a circle halfway along that line. There we go. And it will be 1/4 of the way along, and this one will be 3/4 of the way along. Great. So I'm going to use a coincident constraint. Not a coincident constraint. We're going to use an equals constraint to make this circle equal to that circle in size. And we're going to add a dimension to the circle. And we're going to say that it's 8 millimeters in diameter. Good stuff. And we'll click Finish Sketch. Next, we're going to extrude both of these circles down, and we'll extrude them down 70 millimeters. Looking good. All right. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to make visible the origin plane that bisects this arc along its length. So find the plane. In my case, it's the the YZ plane. And we'll right-click it and say Visibility. And now we're going to draw a sketch on that plane. So what we want to do is draw two circles that represent these pillars, and they're going to come from that plane, and they're going to shoot outwards. So let's go, and we'll say Start 2D Sketch. Create the sketch on that plane, and hit F7 to slice the graphics. I'll show you what that does by changing the angle. It slices and removes all the material before the sketch plane. If you don't want to hit F7, there's a little button for it down here. And there you go. And what we're going to do is do the following. We're going to say Project Geometry, and we'll pick the lower edge of the arc there. And if we hit O for offset, if we drag that arc up, we can see that it can go to a total of about maybe 11.5 millimeters. Go ahead and say around maybe, we'll say 6 millimeters offset. Or maybe 5.5 millimeters. 5.5. Honestly, it doesn't make a difference. Okay. Now, importantly, what we're going to do is hit F7 again to unslice the graphics. Next, we're going to project the lower faces of these pillars. 1, 2. So we click Project Geometry, and we click the lower faces of those pillars. Slice the geometry again. And now, I'm not sure if you can see it so much on the screen, there's the little yellow line there and a yellow line there. They represent the cross-section of the vertical pillars. So we're going to draw vertical lines that come up from these and intersect that offset arc that we drew. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're going to draw a straight line between that point there and this point here. There we go. And that point there and that point there. So why did we bother to do that? Because the midpoint of that line that we just drew happens to intersect the middle of this. So wonderful. Go ahead and draw an 8 millimeter circle there. And another 8 millimeter circle in the middle there. If you're pedantic like me, you want to go ahead and select all the other lines and make them all construction. Okay. Good stuff. And we'll click Finish Sketch. And now we can extrude those two circles. So going in the wrong direction, we'll click and drag the golden arrow into this direction. And we'll give it a total length of 60 millimeters. Good stuff. Okay, and we're going to hide that origin plane by selecting it either in the graphical window or in the list. Right-click it and untick visibility. Good. Okay. Let's have a look at some of the other features that we've got on our completed model. So as we can see, we've got a cool barrel here that provides some structural reinforcement. We've got some fastener holes at the top plate, and we've got fillets and chamfers all around. Let's go ahead and detail those things. Before we continue, it's always good to save early and save often. So to do that, we'll click the little diskette at the top left, and we'll save it in this folder. So I'm going to call mine headphone cradle. Great. All right. Next, what we're going to do is do the barrel. So we'll come here to plane, and we'll say parallel to plane through a point. Pick the rear face here, and the point here. There we go. And next, what we can do is draw a sketch on that plane. So we'll say start a 2D sketch, pick the plane, and we're going to project the midpoint of these two faces by clicking project geometry and picking the outer edges. 1, 2. If you can't see anything, don't panic, don't worry, it's just drawn on the sketch plane, which we can't see until we slice the graphics with F7. There you go. And all you need to do is two things. One, select them and make them construction. So right click, click construction. And the second thing is draw two circles, one here and another here. Use the equal constraint to make them equal in size. And finally, give a dimension to one of them and make it 14 millimeters in diameter. Cool. Next, click Finish Sketch. And we're going to extrude both of those circles. 1, 2. There's going to be, so for the direction, let's pick asymmetric. And we're going to go backwards 8 millimeters and go forwards 14 millimeters. And make sure that the join command is chosen. And click OK. Next, we're going to hide the plane. So we'll find work plane 2, right click it, and tick visibility. Now, is this a structurally good model? Is it well designed from a structural engineering point of view? Absolutely not. Is it pretty? I think it's kind of pretty. What do you think? Let's go ahead and add in the last bits. So we've got some, let's go and add in the separation here. So the reason why these arms are separated is I wanted to be able to lift up the headphones by putting my fingers through the bracket, and you can't do that if it's the whole way. So we're going to chop out a V through this, through the arm. So there's a number of ways of doing this. I'm going to do it the laziest way that I know how. We'll start a 2D sketch on this rear face here. And I'm going to click Project Geometry and select this line here and this line here. And hit Escape. Next, I'm going to draw two lines. So click Line. And I'm going to click at the end of that line there. And no constraints just yet. Next, we'll go and add a collinear constraint. Yeah. Between that edge here and this line. And again, this edge here and this line here. Great. And finally, we'll draw one line here, 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 and back again. So draw a triangle with its origin at the convergence of those two lines. At the moment, it's fixed. It's not fixed, so it's any shape and size. So we're going to add in some dimensions. We'll go and click Dimension and create a dimension between this line here and this line here. And prescribe an angle of 20 degrees. And do the same on the other side. Don't choose the middle point like I did. There we go, 20. Good stuff. And we'll click Finish Sketch. And now extrude all the way through. Symmetric, both sides as a cut. Excellent, excellent. It's shaping up. Okay, so next let's add in the fillets and chamfers. Make it nice and safe. So we'll add in fillets by hitting F or fillet. And we'll add some fillets on the front on the sides of the arm, so we'll say 3mm fillet there. I want to add another set of fillets, so I'm going to click this green little plus, and it'll make another fillet feature. And I'll pick where the pillars meet the top plate and where the plate meets the where the horizontal pillars meet the brackets. And we'll make those 4mm. And click OK. Excellent. All right, and lastly, I'm going to add in some chamfers. So we'll say up the top, I want some more fillets here. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we'll make those 6mm in radius. And let's add in some chamfers. So we'll say chamfer. And let's go ahead and pick the front and the back of the barrel and the bottom and back of the pillars holding it up. We should have 8 selected there. And for the distance, choose 0.5mm. Good stuff. Okay. The last thing is to add in the fastener holes, which are at the on the plate. So let's go ahead. We will say create a sketch on the bottom of this plate. And there's a million ways of doing this. I'm going to be lazy and say project geometry. Pick that surface. Hit escape. Draw a rectangle at the center point of the radii. And then I'm going to offset by 3mm that rectangle. And the corners of that new rectangle are going to be where I want to place these holes. Convoluted, I know, I'm sorry. We'll select it all and hit construction. Great. Next, click finish sketch. And we'll go ahead and we'll come to hole. And we're going to place our holes at the corners of that innermost rectangle. 1, 2, 3, 4. For the hole type, let's go ahead and pick a simple hole. And for the seat, we're going to add a countersink, which is like a cone so that certain types of screws can go in. For the termination, I'm just going to leave it as through wall because it's fine. It's doing fine. But if you wanted to, you could say 2 and go to that top surface there. For the diameter, make it the major diameter 4mm and for the countersink diameter 6mm. And click OK. And that should leave us with nice fastener holes. Good stuff. Okay. Last thing, we'll add chamfers top and bottom. 1, 2. And assign a material. So we'll change our material at the top here from generic to ABS plastic. Wonderful! Looks good! Yay, we're done! It was a very successful 3D model. I know it was a bit simplistic in terms of geometries and whatnot, but we got to see how to import an image into a sketch, scale it to be its true scale, and then use that image to guide the geometry of our 3D model. So, I hope you learned something. If there's something that you'd like to see 3D modeled or a particular feature that you'd like to really delve into, please mention it in the comments below. I'm going to try and 3D print this thing. My 3D printer has seen better days and tends to embarrass me, so I'm going to do that part off camera, but I'll let you know how it goes. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!